The Australian sun beat down mercilessly on the Ingram farm as David and Julie went about their daily chores. Experienced cattle breeders, they knew every animal on their property intimately. But today, something unusual caught their attention. Julie's brow furrowed as she observed one of their prized cows grazing in the paddock. The animal's belly seemed impossibly swollen, stretching taut against her hide. Concerned, she called David over to take a look. David jogged over, wiping sweat from his forehead. His eyes widened as he took in the cow's enormous girth. He ran a calloused hand along the cow's flank, his mind racing with possibilities. Julie nodded, her own thoughts mirroring her husband's. The cow had been eating more than usual lately. A suspicion began to form in both their minds, almost too exciting to voice aloud. The possibility of twins hung between them, electric with potential. Twins in cattle were uncommon, but not unheard of. As the days stretched into weeks, they watched their cow with bated breath, wondering what surprises lay in store. 2 months later, the moment of truth arrived. The cow's plaintive cries echoed across the farm as labor began. David and Julie sprang into action, their movements practiced and efficient despite the thrumming anticipation in their veins. Hours ticked by, each moment stretching into an eternity. Julie paced outside the barn, her heart in her throat, while David stayed with the laboring animal. The cow's cries grew more urgent, more pained. Finally, a triumphant shout from David broke the tension. The first calf had arrived. Julie rushed in, her eyes shining as she beheld the tiny, wet calf nestled in David's arms. She helped clean the newborn, her touch gentle and reverent. But even as they tended to the first calf, their eyes kept darting back to the mother cow, waiting for the second birth they were sure would follow. Minutes passed, then an hour. The cow seemed calm, showing no signs of further labor. Doubt began to creep in. Had they been mistaken? Julie's shoulders slumped in disappointment. The possibility of twins seemed to be slipping away. But fate had other plans. Just as they were about to admit defeat, the cow let out an ear-splitting bellow. Julie's head snapped up, her eyes locking with David's in a moment of shared disbelief. Within minutes, a second calf slid into the world, a female this time. Exhausted but elated, David and Julie cradled the newborns, marveling at the miracle they had just witnessed. But their night of surprises was far from over. As they sat basking in the glow of new life, a strange tension filled the air. The mother cow, who should have been peacefully bonding with her calves, suddenly pushed them away with unexpected force. Alarm bells rang in David's mind. Something wasn't right. He handed his calf to Julie and approached the cow cautiously, his trained eye scanning for any signs of distress. What he saw made his blood run cold. The cow was still in labor. Julie's gasp of disbelief was drowned out by another pained cry from the cow. She scrambled to her feet, gently placing the calves in a nearby pen before rushing to David's side. Together they worked with frantic determination, guiding the cow through this unexpected third birth. Minutes felt like hours as they coaxed and encouraged, their hearts pounding in unison with the cow's labored breaths. Finally, with a rush of fluid and a triumphant bellow, a third calf entered the world. David and Julie stood frozen, staring at the impossible scene before them. 3 calves. Triplets. The rarity of the event struck them like a physical blow. The odds of triplets in cattle were 1 in 10,000, a statistic that seemed impossible in the face of the reality before them. They barely had time to process this miraculous event before the cow's cries rose again, filled with unmistakable anguish. David's eyes widened in disbelief. It couldn't be happening, and yet his hands moved instinctively to assist. Against all odds, against everything they thought they knew, a 4th calf was on its way. The birth was difficult, more challenging than the others. Julie murmured words of encouragement to the straining cow, her own eyes brimming with tears of empathy and amazement. David worked tirelessly, his movements fueled by pure adrenaline and decades of experience. With one final Herculean push, the fourth calf slid into the world. Silence fell over the barn, broken only by the soft mewling of newborn calves and the heavy breathing of the exhausted mother. David and Julie stood motionless, their minds struggling to comprehend the magnitude of what they had just witnessed. Quadruplets, in cattle. The odds were astronomical, so rare that many breeders went their entire careers without seeing such an event. As the reality of the situation sank in, a bubble of laughter escaped Julie's lips. It started as a giggle, then grew into a full-bodied laugh, tears of joy streaming down her face. David joined in, their combined laughter a release of tension, disbelief, and sheer, unadulterated joy. They watched in wonder as the mother cow, her ordeal finally over, drifted into a peaceful sleep. Around her, 4 tiny calves, miracles made flesh, took their first tentative steps in the world. David wrapped an arm around Julie's shoulders, pulling her close. Their family had grown by 4 overnight, a thought that filled them both with a sense of wonder and excitement. As the first rays of dawn began to peek over the horizon, David and Julie Ingram stood in silent reverence, witnesses to a night of impossible odds and extraordinary events. Their farm, their lives, would never be the same. In the soft light of morning, 4 newborn calves huddled close to their sleeping mother, living proof that sometimes reality is more wondrous than any story we could imagine. The Ingram farm had become the site of a miracle, a place where the improbable became possible and where the bonds of family, both human and bovine, grew stronger with each passing moment.